Chosen one, your stance is both their deepest fear and their secret longing. They tried to shake you, but instead, they crumbled against the unyielding force of your spirit. Your silence became their worst nightmare. You did not break. You flourished. You did not weep. You radiated. Now they are lost in the shadow of your presence because you refuse to engage in their false games. Even now, the mere thought of you unsettles them. Your resolve, your strength, your unwavering faith, and the sheer power of your being. That is why they cannot forget you. As you move forward, they fall behind. Now pause and remember, you triumphed simply by being yourself. So rise, mark 77 in the comments, and keep walking. Because the chosen ones do not look back. They ascend. They conjured a storm, convinced it would consume you. Their plan was meticulously crafted: provoke, confuse, and dismantle your sense of self. They wove illusions of chaos, laid traps laced with half-truths and insinuations, and waited for you to stumble. Yet despite their calculations, you remained unmoved, not out of ignorance, but from a strength they could neither fathom nor anticipate. Your stillness was not surrender. It was an unspoken decree that their games held no power over you. Their strategy collapsed swiftly, undone by your refusal to engage. Now they find themselves ensnared in the very web they wove. Their fixation grows, fueled by the agonizing realization that control was never truly in their grasp. They spent their energy plotting your downfall, only to discover they had trapped themselves. The narrative they sought to impose unraveled the moment you chose clarity over conflict. Your silence fractured their illusion. Their efforts proved powerless against a mind that refused to relinquish its peace. They longed for your outrage, your despair, your need to explain. Instead, they were met with emptiness, an absence that echoed louder than any retaliation ever could. That silence unhinged them, shattering the illusion of dominance they so desperately clung to. In your calm, they found their undoing, a force more disruptive than fury ever could be. Now the balance shifts and they feel it. The weight of their own deception presses down, reverberating in the void you left behind. Deprived of your reactions, they drift through the ruins of their own making. The energy they once drained from you is gone, leaving them hollow. Their bravado wanes. Their distractions no longer mask the truth. Without you, their schemes dissolve into nothingness. They proclaim indifference too loudly, hoping to convince themselves. Their laughter, forced. Their displays of triumph, exaggerated to hide their unease. Yet when the noise fades and the facade crumbles, the weight of their loss becomes undeniable. They underestimated the quiet strength of one who refuses to play their game. Your absence unsettles them, for nothing wounds an ego addicted to control more than irrelevance. Regret creeps in, unbidden but relentless. The presence they once dismissed now haunts them in its absence. They retrace their steps, searching for the moment they lost their grip, unable to accept the simple truth. You chose yourself, and in doing so, you shattered the illusion they built their world upon. They see you not as broken, but as transformed, untethered from the chaos they tried to impose. And that sight, your undeniable rise, becomes their unshakable reminder that they lost a battle they never truly understood. They calculated their moves with precision, convinced that their strategies would tether you to their control indefinitely. Their efforts were methodical, planting seeds of confusion, crafting scenarios to test your resolve, and maneuvering through manipulative tactics like puppeteers behind a curtain. Yet, against their expectations, you didn't bend. You didn't break. Instead, you exuded a quiet detachment that dismantled their illusions of dominance. Your indifference wasn't accidental. It was the unspoken testament of a soul no longer entertained by performance. If you feel the abundance of divine love in your heart, now is the time to share it. You can help spread God's blessings by clicking the Super Thank You button on YouTube and contributing $20 or more. This divine gift will touch not only your life, but the souls of many through this platform. Each of you has a sacred place in God's grand design, and your generosity will be the fruit of our prayers. Act now. Share your blessings to glorify His kingdom, for you were created to do even greater things in God's loving hands. May God bless you. The unraveling of their ego became inevitable. Deprived of the reaction they sought, they now sit in the discomfort of their own disillusionment. Their plans didn't falter because of your resistance. They collapsed under the weight of their own assumptions. They mistook your empathy for weakness, your patience for compliance, and now they are left grasping at shadows. That composed silence of yours became their undoing. They expected noise, conflict, a desperate plea for understanding. But instead, your unyielding calm mirrored a fortress they could not breach. Their attempts to provoke, to unsettle, to reclaim the spotlight fell into a void. The absence of your response echoed more powerfully than any words ever could. Desperation now fuels their movement. They hover at the periphery of your existence, seeking entry points to reestablish the patterns once so familiar. A casual comment here, a seemingly innocent inquiry there. Each gesture is a thinly veiled attempt to regain access. This isn't an act of remorse, it's a frantic bid to reinstate the control they mistakenly assumed was eternal. They parade resilience to the outside world, hoping their facade might hide the fracture within. Forced laughter, staged happiness, and feigned indifference mask the growing void left in your wake. But the truth remains unshakable. Their narrative disintegrated the moment you chose self-respect over their illusion. As regret sets in, it arrives like a slow, creeping tide. They reflect on their miscalculation, the audacity to believe you were a permanent fixture in their game. But regret is not synonymous with growth. It's merely the recognition of a misstep, a pang born from losing what they assumed was guaranteed. The reality of your departure disrupts their sense of superiority. The persona they carefully curated now feels incomplete without your presence to validate it. They search for ways to rewrite the story, to portray themselves as the victim. But the cracks in their deception are too deep to conceal. The truth has surfaced. The chaos was never yours to carry. It was theirs, camouflaged by projection and falsehood. Now exposed, they wrestle with the emptiness they once projected onto you. And while they spiral through the wreckage of their own making, you continue forward, untethered, illuminated, and impervious to the gravity of their manipulation. The weight of their regret presses down like an unshakable shadow. They never imagined this moment, when the person they underestimated would become the embodiment of resilience. They assumed their absence would leave you fractured, clinging to memories and begging for closure. But reality shattered their assumptions. You didn't chase. You didn't plead. You became the calm after the storm, unyielding and resolute in your peace. The vacuum left by your departure exposes their hidden dependency. The control they once flaunted was an illusion, a mirage sustained by your presence. Now they circle the perimeter of your world, desperate for a glimpse of what they once dismissed. Every casual like, every random message, every indirect inquiry is a feeble attempt to test the waters, to measure if the door is still ajar. But the sanctuary you built now stands guarded, impenetrable. Their fixation grows with every unanswered thought, the endless replay of past interactions, the obsessive scanning of your digital footprint. It's not curiosity, it's compulsion. They scour for signs of distress, for evidence that their absence disrupted your foundation. But instead they find light, elevation, and a version of you they never anticipated, one who flourishes beyond their reach. The sting of your silence becomes their undoing. They expected collapse, not ascent. They believed you would remain tethered to the narrative they crafted. Yet here you are, grounded and unshaken. Their regret festers, not from genuine remorse, but from the recognition that the game they orchestrated no longer holds power. Life moves like a river, carved by unseen hands, flowing with purpose even when the current feels uncertain. It's like the ancient oak, standing tall amidst the storms, rooted not just in soil, but in a divine truth that whispers, "You were always meant for more." And while the world spins with noise and distractions, the chosen ones, the ones grounded in spiritual resilience, recognize that some storms arrive not to destroy, but to reveal who truly stands firm. Time becomes a relentless adversary for them. The distractions that once provided temporary escape now feel hollow. New faces, new situations, None replicate the authenticity of what they discarded. The realization hits like a cold, unyielding wave. What they lost was irreplaceable. The energy you shared, the kindness they exploited, the unwavering presence they dismissed now haunts the spaces they frequent. You see, when grace walks out of a room, the absence is palpable. The light you carried, so natural and unforced, was a gift they took for granted. They mistook patience for weakness, compassion for naivety. But now that absence leaves them restless. They search for substitutes in shallow connections, hoping to reclaim the sense of significance your presence once provided. But what they fail to grasp is that divine favor can't be mimicked, and the presence of the chosen is never replicated. Their mind races with unanswered questions. They wonder when the shift happened, when the tether broke. They replay conversations, dissect moments, and grasp for threads of control that no longer exist. And the more they seek, the more elusive peace becomes, because peace was never theirs to command. It was yours to give. And you chose to withdraw it. In this withdrawal, a spiritual principle plays out. You cannot harvest where you sow deception. The dissonance they feel now isn't just guilt or regret, it's the natural consequence of their actions. They poured manipulation into the soil of your connection, hoping for fruits of control. Instead, they face a barren landscape where nothing good grows. So now time is no longer their ally. Days stretch with the heaviness of missed opportunities. Nights bring the quiet confrontation of self, and in that stillness, they grapple with an unyielding truth. They lost not just a person, but a presence infused with a grace they may never encounter again. Meanwhile, you rise with an ease that confounds them, not because you sought revenge or validation, but because you aligned with a higher calling. Like a lighthouse on a foggy coast, you stand firm, radiating the light of someone who understands that some departures are acts of spiritual preservation. And as they wander through the maze of their own making, you continue forward, guided, grounded, and undeniably free. Dear brothers and sisters, may God's peace be upon you today. I am here to remind you of a profound truth. Our existence is grounded in God's divine plan, unshaken by the temporal concerns of the world. As the Bible says, whatever is done in faith will return to God in abundant blessing. Luke 6:38. Like that great oak tree, our roots are deeply rooted in God's universal truth. Every step we take, every stand we take, is secured by His strength. And now you are being offered the opportunity to be part of that blessing. When you use the super thank you button and donate $100, this movement will return to you 100-fold in abundance. Imagine a house built on sand, its foundation weak and unstable. No matter how pristine the exterior, when the winds of truth blow and the waters of reality rise, that house cannot stand. It crumbles, exposing the fragile structure beneath. This is the nature of falsehood, appearing solid until tested by time and truth. And those who live by manipulation find themselves sooner or later standing amid the ruins of their own creation, bewildered by the collapse they orchestrated. Their pride erodes with each passing day. Conversations that once excluded your name now revolve around it. They seek validation from others, attempting to rewrite the story in their favor. Yet the cracks in their narrative grow more visible, and the mask of indifference slips. The audience they try to convince sees through the performance. The weight of self-deception becomes heavier with each passing moment. Pride, once their armor, now acts as a millstone, dragging them into depths they never anticipated. They speak louder, laugh harder, and create more elaborate stories, hoping that volume will compensate for substance. But the truth, once released, moves like a gentle stream that carves canyons through stone. It is patient, persistent, and undeniable. Desperation now guides their actions. They circle conversations like vultures around carrion, seeking morsels of affirmation. Friends grow weary of their narrative, sensing the distortion even if they can't fully articulate it. Attempts to vilify you fall flat, for your absence speaks more powerfully than their accusations. You were the calm within the chaos, the anchor amid their self-created storms. And now that you're gone, their ship drifts aimlessly, battered by the consequences of their own manipulations. They long for the days when your grace covered their insecurities, when your patience softened their harshness, when your empathy masks their emptiness. But those days are gone, replaced by a silence that offers no shelter. Picture a lantern held high in a dense fog. The light, though persistent, can't penetrate the thick veil surrounding it. In the same way, when individuals build their identity on deception, their attempts to illuminate their version of the story become futile. Truth, like the dawn, doesn't need to be forced. It simply arrives, scattering the shadows of manipulation. And when that truth rises, the fog of lies dissipates, leaving the pretender exposed and bewildered. The search for validation becomes frantic. They scour social circles for allies, unaware that their desperation is the loudest statement of all. The very people they attempt to sway begin to see the pattern. Words once believed are now met with skepticism. The persona they present is no longer convincing. Desperation drips from every word they speak, every carefully crafted narrative they push forward. They try to rewrite the past with stories that cast themselves as the wounded, the wronged, the misunderstood. But the cracks in their tale widen with each retelling, and the crowd begins to shift uneasily. The performance no longer draws sympathy. It inspires confusion, then doubt, then quiet dismissal. Like a tree that bears no fruit despite its showy branches, their efforts yield nothing of substance. The community around them, once willing to extend the benefit of the doubt, now recognizes the void behind the performance. The once plausible explanations now sound rehearsed. The urgency in their voice betrays the emptiness of their claims. The spiritual principle plays out in real time. What's rooted in deception can't produce a harvest of truth. They sought to cultivate validation through manipulation, but their soil was barren from the start. And now, as they stand in the midst of this self-created drought, the absence of genuine connection becomes undeniable. Meanwhile, you move with ease, your steps unhurried yet intentional, carrying the strength of someone who no longer needs external affirmation. You understand a fundamental truth. When you walk with integrity, the narrative writes itself. The need to explain, to defend, to counter falsehoods evaporates in the presence of undeniable authenticity. While they exhaust themselves constructing a collapsing facade, you remain grounded in the certainty of your own growth. Their frantic search for validation serves only as a mirror, reflecting their internal turmoil. And as they chase shadows, you bask in the clarity of daylight, untouched by their confusion, unmoved by their desperation. Life, like a potter's wheel, shapes us through pressure. But when the hands of grace are present, the vessel emerges stronger and more purposeful. The chosen are not defined by the storms they endure, but by the unwavering light they carry within. This light, born from a divine source, doesn't flicker in the winds of falsehood. It stands firm, a beacon not of defiance, but of destiny. Meanwhile, your spirit remains unshaken. Like a lighthouse rooted in the bedrock of purpose, you shine, not to spite them, but because that is who you are. You don't need to defend yourself or explain your journey. The truth, like the sunrise, requires no defense. It simply appears, and its presence is its proof. The weight of their misunderstanding no longer concerns you. You've realized that clarity isn't a gift you can give to those determined to live in confusion. Your peace isn't sourced from their validation, but from the quiet assurance that comes when your steps align with your calling. And when you're walking in alignment, the opinions of others become mere background noise to the symphony of purpose playing in your soul. They watch, bewildered by your stability. They don't understand how someone they tried so hard to disassemble stands with such grace. But you know the truth. Your foundation was never in their hands. It was never built on their acceptance, their opinions, or their fleeting approval. It was laid in the depths of faith, in the certainty that those who walk with integrity walk with power. Like the roots of a mountain oak, your grounding lies beneath the surface, invisible yet immovable. The winds may howl and the storms may rage, but your stance remains unchanged. Because you've learned the secret, resilience is less about resistance and more about surrender. Surrender to the truth, to the path, to the purpose etched into the fabric of your being. They attempt to mimic your calm, to replicate your confidence, but authenticity can't be counterfeited. What flows from the soul can't be manufactured through imitation. They build facades, wear masks, and deliver performances, hoping to capture what you exude naturally. Yet all the while, you continue your journey, unbothered, unattached, unshaken. This isn't a battle you need to fight. The war was won the moment you decided to stand in your truth. The shadows may try to stretch across your path, but they can never extinguish the light that was divinely placed within you. And so, you walk forward, eyes fixed on the horizon, spirit anchored in faith, knowing that the light you carry isn't just for you. It's a testament to the unyielding grace that sustains you through every season. As they wrestle with the consequences of their deception, you move forward, unburdened and at peace. Your growth, your grace, your resilience become the undeniable testimony of a life anchored in authenticity. And no amount of their rewriting can alter the unassailable fact. You chose truth, and truth in turn set you free. Life is much like a field tended by a faithful farmer. The soil doesn't ask who deserves the harvest. It simply responds to what is planted. And when seeds of deception are sown, the harvest will inevitably yield confusion and despair. But when faith, integrity, and grace are planted, the crops grow strong, unyielding to the storms that pass through. The chosen walk through this life not by striving to control others, but by trusting in the quiet power of their authenticity. And the final blow? Witnessing your evolution, seeing you thrive without the weight of their presence, becomes the mirror they can't avoid. They're left grappling with the truth. The destruction they plotted never reached you. Instead, it turned inward, leaving them ensnared by their own deceit. While they wander through the labyrinth of their own regrets, you move with purpose, unfazed, unbothered, and entirely free. Your growth becomes a living testament to the principle that grace elevates while manipulation implodes. They watch from afar, bewildered by the calm with which you continue your journey. You were once their anchor of control, the person they thought would never escape the gravitational pull of their games. Yet here you are, soaring, beyond their reach, leaving them tethered to the consequences of their own actions. The reality they face is harsh. They now see that power wasn't in their hands, but in your willingness to participate. And when you walked away, you reclaimed the power they once wielded so recklessly. They sit in the aftermath, trying to understand how their strategy backfired so completely. The answer, though simple, is one they refuse to accept. Your strength was never external. It was always rooted within. Imagine a desert traveler chasing a mirage, convinced that the shimmering illusion ahead promises relief. Step after step, they move toward what they believe is salvation, only to find sand and emptiness. This is the plight of those who live by manipulation. They chase illusions of control, unaware that the oasis they seek was never real. Their thirst isn't for connection, but for dominance. And without a willing participant, their game dissolves like vapor. Now is the time to share God's blessings. By clicking the super thank you button on YouTube, you can contribute to His plan and be a part of this divine mission. With a donation of $100 or more, every gift reflects God's generosity, and I believe it will return to you exponentially, far beyond your expectations. Remember, His protection and blessing are on your every step, and with every donation, you become part of His divine plan. You are a strong, radiant being, unshakable as His mighty rock. Witness God's miracles, feel the fruits of your generosity in your soul, and illuminate the world with confidence and courage. Be blessed, and let the light of the Lord guide your path. Like a ship without a compass, they drift through the sea of their own discontent. Each attempt to provoke, to reconnect, to disrupt your peace fails because you have transcended the dynamic that once imprisoned you. The emotional supply they once took for granted has run dry, and without it, their schemes collapse like a house built on shifting sand. Their confusion deepens as they witness your unwavering calm. They try old tactics, recycling patterns of guilt and gaslighting, only to find that the strings they once pulled have been cut. Your growth is their undoing, not because you sought revenge, but because you chose liberation. You now exist outside the gravitational pull of their dysfunction, moving with purpose, grace, and a resolve they never saw coming. And as they flail, the truth settles in. You were never the source of chaos. You were the steady center they tried to destabilize, the grounding force they underestimated. Now, with your absence, they confront their reflection in the still waters of solitude, forced to see the reality of who they are without the distraction of your reactions. This is the power of spiritual alignment. When you walk in truth, when your steps align with integrity, the noise of deception grows faint. You didn't need to fight them. You simply needed to step out of the ring. And now from a distance, you watch as their world, built on pretense, crumbles beneath the weight of its own falsehoods. While they grasp for control, you continue forward, anchored in the knowledge that peace isn't something they can steal. It's a gift you gave yourself when you chose authenticity over illusion. Your evolution isn't just a personal triumph. It's a spiritual declaration. You've demonstrated that those who live by deceit ultimately become entangled in it. Their regret isn't about losing you as a person. It's about losing the control they thought was permanent. Now they face a reality where you shine independently, untouched by their narrative. While they remain fixated on the past, you stride confidently into the future. Their words, once wielded like weapons, now fall to the ground, powerless in the presence of your growth. And as you continue to rise, the distance between their illusions and your truth grows, leaving them trapped in the maze of their own making. You, however, walk free, driven not by vengeance, but by the steady, unwavering light of purpose.